Hello everyone, bonjour. Thank you very much, merci beaucoup, for taking the time to tune in and have a look at the video. I'm going to answer the questions that I've received over the last week and a half or so from the members directly. We'll put up the email address again towards the end of the video and give you more opportunity to write in and ask what it is that you want to know. This is my attempt at trying as best I can to keep some sort of direct contact with the membership at these difficult times. I can tell you hands down, there's nothing I'm missing more right now than the ability to get out into the units, see people face to face, and have good conversations with them about what's going on. So without further ado, let's get straight into the questions, and we'll try and keep this video as timely as we can. So the first question has to do with training. In the last video, you alluded to the fact that possibly there could be a set of employees that could present a cost savings for the company somewhere down the road. Would that be the probationary students who are not licensed? And could it include us licensed between qualification controllers? So that question came from somebody who was training in a new area, was previously licensed, had seniority. And I can say unequivocally that no, that group would not include people in that boat, so to speak. If you are licensed and you've had a license, you have seniority. And that will protect you from being at the bottom of the layoff pool, so to speak. We'll talk about layoffs a little bit later. The group I was referring to were exactly what was referred to as probationary employees. That is anybody who does not have a license. If you don't have a license, NAV Canada can, under the terms of the collective agreement, release you at any point during your probationary period without cause, without reason. That group could be vulnerable, but I have to stress, they have not, and when I say they, NAV Canada has not approached us and indicated that they have any desire to lay off those trainees at this point. And obviously, as you all know, they are all still being paid. The second question around training: is there a possibility that trainees might be able to get back to work and be socially distanced? It's not something that we've talked about to date. We are still very much in protection mode, and part of that protection, or the bulk of that protection, is a very simple premise. The less people in a facility, the less odds that COVID-19 would be brought into the facility. But I will say that I think the time is approaching where we need to have discussions about returning trainees to the operation. We have licensed members out there who were in the middle of training, who have been removed and are sitting at home and are disadvantaged because of it. And the provinces are starting to talk about return to work protocols. And I believe that the time will come very shortly where NAV Canada will also talk about return to work protocols for trainees. Especially for our previously licensed members, we need to look at having those conversations. So here's an interesting question. I got this one actually a couple of times, but I'll paraphrase it into the one question that sort of covered it all. Since we have a contract, my understanding is that NAV Canada cannot unilaterally make a decision to cut salaries. If it came to it, would we ask our members for a salary cut to try and avoid layoffs? Also, would this decision be one that CACA could make on its own, or would it require a membership ratification vote? That's a good question. It's one that requires a crystal ball, so to speak, but I would be fairly confident in saying no, we would not go down the road of asking our members to take salary cuts to avoid layoffs. There's a number of reasons for that, not the least of which are we are very aware that we have members that are in their last 5 years building up their best 5 for retirement. We would not want to affect that. And we're also very aware of the salary cuts that members have already taken. Although it's not on paper and your salary still reflects the same number, we are very aware that there have been massive reductions in your take-home pay because of the loss of overtime. I don't believe, time could prove me wrong, but I don't believe that the membership would have an appetite to reduce their salaries to avoid the layoffs of more junior people. CAT could do it? Yeah, we could. The deferral of the retroactive pay increase and the deferral of the salary increase until the fall of this year, CAT could have done that by ourselves. We did not need to take a vote. Your board of directors, or the executive board as we call it now, could have done that on their own. We are elected to represent the members, and as long as we do so without being arbitrary or without being discriminatory, we could certainly do that by ourselves. Having said that, please take note of the fact that when we asked for, or we were asked for deferral, the first thing that we did was went to the members to get their approval. This board, and my belief in this board, as long as the current makeup is still intact, I think we would do exactly the same thing when we went, if we were to go down the road of any sort of a salary reduction. That would be put to the members for a vote. However, again, I would say I don't believe that that would happen. Term employees, or as a lot of people like to refer to them, double dippers. What is the union's stance on double dippers and letting the company potentially let them go? That question came in, one of the first ones that did come in, and probably before the fact that everybody has seen most of the terms have been sent home. Their term employment has been terminated. We don't really have a stance on it. What we do is we look at each individual contract because they are all written individually. The shorter term ones, the company does have a right to terminate them, we believe, and those people have been sent home. The longer ones, which are multiple year contracts, a little bit different from a legal standpoint. And if you know people on the long-term multiple year contracts, they're still around. There's only a very, very few of them across the country. We don't really have a stance on it. We just follow what the labor code and the contract says the company has the right to do. As you know, most of all the term employees have been sent home. The next question. With the motto, keep all members receiving a paycheck, I'd like to know if job sharing is being considered. No, we haven't had discussions on it yet. I can tell you that when we did a round of collective bargaining and job sharing was on the table as a demand from our membership, I was the person, back when I was an RVP on a bargaining team, who was assigned to do the job sharing project and see if we could find a way to do it. I can tell you that it took months and months of work, studying other contracts, looking at other companies. The complexities around job sharing when you have a 24/7, 365 operation that involves a lot of overtime are extremely great. There's also complications with life insurance, health benefits, dental benefits, which are reduced if you get into a job sharing situation. That said, NAV Canada has also made it fairly clear right now that they are looking for ways to reduce their workforce in some areas. If you have somebody else in your unit, your specialty, that holds the same qualifications as you, that is interested in a job sharing arrangement, they should definitely contact their manager and see if it is something that they are interested in. If they are, we would certainly enter into discussions with NAV Canada to entertain that concept. On the question of the pay deferrals that the majority of you voted to accept until the fall of 2020, I have a question for both the retroactive pay and the pay increase. If there is no significant increase to the traffic levels over the summer months, in your opinion, would NAV Canada ask again the union to defer the payment, or do you believe that this ask was a one-time thing? I don't believe that the ask would be a one-time thing if the traffic doesn't return. If we are in the same situation in the fall that we are in today, where traffic is 10% of what it was going into this crisis, I have no doubt in my mind that NAV Canada will come again and say, look, could we defer this again? I'm not sure that our answer that time would be yes. I think the deferral was a quick, short-term fix. However, that said, as we did this time, if there was a deferral to be considered in the fall, that question would again be put to the membership. Here's a question that covers a few things that people asked as well about what NAV Canada is doing. What has the company done to secure financing beyond the aid programs currently in effect by the government? Are they considering a new bond issue? Have they applied for special financing, as we are a not-for-profit and we cannot be allowed to collapse? Has there been any talk between the government helping NAV with funding? Has this option been explored? It seems like the federal government is jumping to the aid of many companies. Why not NAV Canada? It's a very difficult question to answer. It's very difficult to comment on the issuance of bonds, at least for the company to comment on it, because it has effects on the market and their credit rating, and it's not something that NAV Canada would normally speculate on. In terms of discussions with the government, yes, they are happening. NAV Canada is definitely talking to the government about aid. I can tell you that Unifor, Jerry Dias, has written to the government requesting a meeting with the Minister of Finance and with the Minister of Transport. And I have been asked if that meeting is convened and they grant it, if I would attend to represent the air traffic controllers in NAV Canada and our interests in the aviation sector. Of course, I've told Jerry that I'll be happy to attend and lend our voice to a request for aid. I can tell you that in the discussions that I have with NAV Canada right now, no stone is being left unturned, but commenting on what those stones are would be unwise for the company, and it just isn't something that they're going to do. The early retirement incentive, that was rolled out last week, and you've seen most of the details. It did, in effect, eliminate most of the questions that I had on the ERI, because now the Q&As and the details have been published. But let's talk about a few of them. Under the early retirement incentive and downsizing of the workforce, is there a chance that early retirement can be forced, or would layoffs have to happen before a forced retirement? Again, some questions are very easy to answer with certitude, and I can tell you that with certitude, this one, there is no way they can force you to retire. Retirement is optional. Retirement is voluntary. If you look at the ERI and it is attractive to you, you can put in your retirement notice. If it's not attractive to you, you don't have to put in your retirement notice, and you can be rest assured that you will be left to finish out the rest of your career with a retirement date that you choose. The answer would be yes. If NAV decided that they did have to reduce the workforce, layoffs would happen before any sort of forced retirement. I have to go back and stress, I don't want anybody to take when I talk about layoffs to say, oh no, Peter was talking about layoffs, they're coming. Furthest thing from the truth. I actually believe quite the opposite. I don't think that layoffs are going to happen, but I have to lay out the answers when I'm asked questions like that. When everything's finalized, I'd like an answer to how my end of career leave will be affected. Well, again, I think you've already seen that. Well, you have seen that in the Q&As and the rollout of the ERI. Your end of career leave will be a 6-month period, whereas previously to the ERI, you could have used 6 months of sick leave, 6 months of toil if you had that banked. Now it will be 6 months of the ERI and 6 months of leave for anybody who has less than 35 years. That's how it applies. For anybody with more than 35 years, the most you can take is 6 months end of career leave. There is no salary continuance under ERI. You simply just get a 6-month payment. But again, all the answers to that have been provided in the ERI rollout. Continuing with the ERI, if the company proposes anything with regards to payout for an early retirement incentive, can the union or the company include some examples for rough comparisons? That's something that CACA has a long-standing policy that we do not provide financial advice. We don't provide financial examples. There are so many permutations to this about how much sick leave you have, how much toil you may have in the bank, what your payout will be, what your tax bracket is, what your family status is that put you into what tax bracket you're in. There's just too many variables and there's too many things associated with it. If If we put something out and we erred in some way, that could hold the union liable, and we would not put ourselves in that position. As we say to anybody, once you have the facts, which you now have, you should really take them to a financial planner who can look at your own personal situation and give you advice on a decision that would be best for you. So our membership dues. Since the membership has agreed to a freeze on wage increases and our retroactive pay, would you consider a freeze on membership dues? The very quick answer to that question right now is no. Believe it or not, all the travel that I do, all the travel that the executive board, the RVPs do, and the expenses associated with that equates to about 10% of CACA's operating budget. We have a building to maintain. We have staff whose salaries need to be paid. We have contingency funds that we constantly have to transfer money into. We have collective bargaining funds, one of which was just wiped out, which we now have to replenish and replace for the next round of collective bargaining, constantly transferring money there. We have a convention fund that we have to rebuild prior to the Quebec City Convention, and so we still need the dues. However, the bylaws of CACA say if we have a surplus at the end of the year by a certain level, we have to execute a dues holiday and give that money back to the members. If that happens, we absolutely will do it, as we have done in the past. We don't want to put ourselves in a situation right now where we're going to be in financial problems. We'd much rather just keep going the way we're going, stay the course, and at the end of the year when we get to the financial review, if we have that surplus, we will return the money to the members. So of all the questions that I got in the last week and a half, the majority of them, the great majority of them, surrounded layoffs. Questions about how will layoffs work? Am I protected? Who's not protected? Who would be the first to go? This is a very, very difficult area for us to provide answers on. And the reason I say that is if you look at Article 33, there's a lot of gray in Article 33, and it's not very clear and concise about how layoffs would work. However, it is what would govern any surplus situation. In cases where we've had units close and we've used Article 33 and the company's invoked Article 33, we've been able to work our way through it, and we have a pretty good set of guidelines as to how it works. I don't think I have to tell you that there has never been a case in the history of CACA where we have laid off people across the country. It is our belief that layoffs happen by seniority across the country. I'm not sure that NAV Canada shares that belief, and right now, for lack of a better word, I don't want to devote my time and energy into negotiating with NAV Canada a way to lay people off that we all agree on. I would much rather spend my time and energy working with NAV Canada to find every way possible not to lay people off. The one part I can tell you, and we did get a question on it, is the 6-month notice in the collective agreement airtight? Is there a conceivable way where NAV Canada could get around that? The answer to that is no. Article 33, if it's triggered, requires 6 months notice of the surplus period. That is one thing that is in black and white and both sides agree on. So no, they cannot get around that. If NAV Canada came to CACA tomorrow and said, we think we need to lay people off down the line, we are invoking Article 33, giving you 6 months notice, at that time, CACA would certainly turn its focus and all its energy into having very quick, precise talks with NAV Canada as to how that would happen. Until we actually get that notice, I have no interest in clearing the way for layoffs, for lack of a better word. We will address layoffs if and when we get to them. Again, as I've been saying through this video, NAV Canada has not spoken to us about layoffs. Layoffs will be very, very difficult. They'll be very tricky. And in our opinion, they have to happen on a nationwide basis, and that will make it even harder. You know that NAV has gone down the road of an early retirement incentive. you also know that coming into this pandemic, we had a staffing crisis. That staffing crisis has not gone away. When traffic levels return, and if you listen to the experts and the forecasts, they're saying that by the end of the summer of 2021, we'll be back to 75%. Well, we're going to need all hands on deck. And we're going to need everybody that we have right now. We may be able to reduce our staff here and there by a body or two, but I believe the early retirement incentive will take care of that. I just don't foresee layoffs from CACA. There may be other parts of NAV Canada who may have to face that reality. I don't believe that our bargaining unit is one of them. So that's it for this round of questions. I obviously did get a lot more, but they were grouped into the subjects that were covered here, and some of them have been covered by the information put out by the union or the company since. Again, here's the email address, askthecacapresident@gmail.com. Keep the questions coming. I will be more than happy to do another one of these videos and an attempt to, as best we can, keep you informed, answer your questions directly, and do it in somewhat of a face-to-face way. I have to say thank you to the emails that I received in addition to the questions. I did get a lot of them saying thanks to CACA for what you've done, thanks for the schedules that you've put in across the country, and thanks for being as visible as you can and doing what you're doing. I can tell you that the executive board, myself, Doug, and the RVPs, we're putting in pretty long hours right now, probably almost the busiest I've ever been in my career, but I'm happy to do so. That's our job. That's what we're elected to do, and the words of thanks that come from you are greatly appreciated. Thanks again for all you're doing as well on the front lines every day. It doesn't ever go lost on us that you're risking yourselves coming into work and your family as an essential service, and I couldn't be prouder of what each and every one of you are doing. So keep those questions coming. We will get back to you with some more answers when we can. Stay safe. Thank you very much for watching. Merci beaucoup. We will see you again. Au revoir.